Before we can decode a prophecy, before we can connect ancient legacies with our future, we must confront an undeniable truth right here, right now. A colossal enigma is hurtling through our solar system, and it is shattering every rule we thought we knew. The object, designated 3/Atlas, is not merely a comet. It is a collection of anomalies, a stark indictment of our neat and predictable models of the cosmos. When you cast aside the facile official explanations, when you look squarely at the raw data, the flimsy veil of a natural object begins to tear, revealing something far more deliberate and far more unsettling underneath. It begins with its sheer scale. Based on early observations, Dr. Avi Loeb, the former chair of Harvard's Astronomy department, calculated its mass at a staggering 33 billion tons. To put that into perspective, this is not just large, it is absurdly large. It outweighs the first two confirmed interstellar visitors, Oumuamua and Borisov, combined, by thousands of times. The laws of probability tell us that we should have detected tens of thousands of smaller objects, interstellar pebbles, before a mountain of this magnitude appeared. And yet here it is. Its arrival in and of itself is a statistical miracle, like never seeing an ant in your garden only to discover an elephant standing on your lawn one morning. Its very existence begs a fundamental question: why is this visitor, the first we can truly scrutinize, such a colossal entity? Is it not a random wanderer, but a deliberate emissary, built large enough that we could not possibly ignore it? If its size is merely surprising, its chemical composition is truly shocking. As it nears the Sun, 3/Atlas is shedding material, creating a strange and beautiful purple halo, a color that does not correspond to any typical cometary outgassing. Spectrographic analysis has revealed something unthinkable. This glow is dominated by emissions of nearly pure nickel, with almost no corresponding trace of iron. To any cosmochemist, this is as bizarre as finding a forest without soil. Nickel and iron are cosmic twins, born together in the nuclear forges of dying stars, and they are invariably found together in all natural cosmic bodies. To find one without the other suggests a material that has undergone a process of refining, processing, or even industrial-scale fabrication. This is not the signature of nature. It is the signature of technology. The third, and perhaps most unsettling anomaly, is its activity. 3/Atlas was observed releasing enormous quantities of water vapor, 40 kilograms per second, when it was still nearly 3 times farther from the Sun than Earth is, in that frozen region of space where sunlight is a mere glimmer. Water ice should be as inert as rock. The solar energy at that distance is insufficient to melt an ice cube, let alone cause it to boil and sublimate so violently. This behavior is like a kettle spontaneously boiling inside a freezer. The only logical explanation, as frightening as it may be, is that this object possesses an internal energy source. A reactor, an engine, an artificial heart still beating after millennia of travel through the void. It is generating its own heat, actively releasing material for a purpose we do not yet understand. These three anomalies alone, its impossible size, its manufactured chemistry, and its internal activity, paint the portrait of a colossal, artificial, and enigmatic object. But all of this is merely a prelude. The most astonishing evidence, the irrefutable proof of intelligent design, lies in the very path it has chosen to take through our home. The physical anomalies we have just examined, the impossible size, the manufactured chemistry, the internal power source, are profoundly unsettling on their own. They form the skin of the mystery, the strange, cold flesh of an entity that does not belong in our catalogue of the natural world. But the true evidence, the beating heart of the argument for intelligent design, is not found in the object itself, but in its motion. The path 3/Atlas is taking through our solar system is not a random trajectory. It is a statement of intent. It is a maneuver so precise, so statistically miraculous, that it stretches the very definition of coincidence to its breaking point, leaving it in tatters. To call its journey an accident is to abandon reason itself. First, consider its method of arrival. It entered our system on what astronomers call a retrograde orbit. This means it is flying backwards, moving against the universal flow of traffic in our cosmic neighborhood. Nearly everything in our solar system, from the smallest asteroid to the gas giant Jupiter, orbits the Sun in the same direction, a ghostly inheritance from the singular spin of the swirling protoplanetary disk from which we were all born. This shared directionality, this prograde motion, is the fundamental rhythm of our system. For an object to enter moving in the opposite direction is profoundly unusual. It is a salmon swimming against a powerful current, a car driving the wrong way down a celestial superhighway. It immediately brands the object as an outsider, a true alien to the established order of our worlds. This alone would be enough to make it a subject of intense study. But what follows is what elevates its path from merely unusual to utterly astonishing. Despite this retrograde wrong-way approach, its trajectory is almost perfectly aligned with the ecliptic plane, the flat invisible disk upon which all the planets conduct their stately orbits around the Sun. Imagine the solar system as a vast, flat record player, with the planets as tiny marbles rolling in the grooves. The ecliptic is the surface of that record, an interstellar object arriving from a random point in the three-dimensional void of the galaxy, could have come from any direction, from above, from below, at any conceivable angle of inclination. The number of possible paths is virtually infinite. Yet, 3/Atlas chose the one path that is most improbable. It threaded the needle. The odds of an object from a random interstellar starting point arriving on a retrograde orbit that is also almost perfectly coplanar with our solar system are a staggering 1 in 500. A mere 0.2% probability. To put that in perspective, it is the statistical equivalent of flipping a coin and having it come up heads 9 times in a row. It is like firing a rifle from a mile away and having the bullet not just hit the target, but land perfectly on its razor-thin edge. One might call that luck. A physicist would call it an event of such low probability that it demands a better explanation. This is not luck, this is marksmanship. But this symphony of improbability has a third movement, a crescendo that transforms the entire composition from a statistical curiosity into what can only be described as a meticulously planned itinerary. This impossibly aligned path just so happens to have orchestrated a series of planetary encounters. It's not simply passing through, it's conducting a grand tour. The schedule began with a close flyby of Mars on October 3, 2025. From there its trajectory will bring it into a precise orbital alignment with Earth in December of 2025 before it continues its journey outward toward the giant Jupiter. Let us be clear. This is not a path. This is a flight plan. A mission profile. The combined probability of this sequence of events, a retrograde approach, a near-perfect ecliptic alignment, and a timeline that facilitates sequential planetary flybys is so infinitesimally small that to call it chance is an act of intellectual surrender. It requires more faith to believe in this string of cosmic coincidences than it does to entertain the possibility of a guiding intelligence. This is where the voice of scientific dissent becomes not just important, but essential. Dr. Avi Loeb, a man whose credentials as the former chair of Harvard's astronomy department are impeccable, was heavily criticized for suggesting our first interstellar visitor, Oumuamua, could have been an alien probe. Now confronted with an object that is exponentially more anomalous, he is on record stating there is a significant chance, he estimates as high as 40%, that 3/Atlas is not of natural origin. He stated, "It looks like a comet, does comet things, but it very strongly resembles comets we know." Pay close attention to that critical word, resembles. It is not a comet. It is a master of camouflage. A tiger's stripes resemble the tall grass. An advanced stealth aircraft resembles a bird on a radar screen. Resemblance is a hallmark of intelligent strategy, a deliberate effort to blend in, to deceive, to approach without causing alarm. The outgassing, the convenient coma that cloaks its true form, is not a natural process, it is a disguise. The official story, the comforting narrative of a weird comet, is cracking under the sheer weight of its own improbability. The numbers do not lie. The chemistry is wrong. The activity is impossible. And its trajectory is a message in itself, a detailed map written in the universal language of orbital mechanics. And to understand the origin of that map, to decipher the message encoded in its flight plan, we must turn our gaze away from the distant stars from which it came. We must look down into the ancient jungles of our own planet, and toward a civilization that understood the cosmos with a sophistication we are only just beginning to appreciate. For centuries, the Maya have been a source of profound fascination, and even deeper mystery. We gaze upon the silent jungle-shrouded ruins of their magnificent cities Tikal, Palan, Chichen Itza, and we marvel at their achievements in mathematics, art, and architecture. But the mainstream narrative we are fed is one of a primitive Stone Age culture obsessed with ritual sacrifice and bloodletting, who built impressive pyramids before inexplicably vanishing into the jungle, their great civilization collapsing for reasons we cannot fully explain. This narrative is not just incomplete, it is a profound and deliberate underestimation of their genius. It is a story designed to keep us comfortable, to keep their true legacy buried under the weight of academic condescension. The Maya were not simply a lost civilization. We will argue they were a spacefaring one. And they did not vanish. They left. Their legacy is not one of societal collapse, but of a grand cosmic plan now reaching its awe-inspiring culmination. To find the evidence for this, you don't need to dig in the dirt for broken pottery. You need only look at the stars, just as they did, and decode the messages they left behind in stone. Consider their astronomical knowledge. Working without telescopes, without any of the instruments we deem essential, the Maya calculated the length of the solar year to a degree of accuracy that surpassed the Julian calendar used by Europeans 1,000 years later. They precisely tracked the complex 584-day synodic period of Venus, a planet they associated with their feathered serpent god Kukulkan, with an error of only a few hours over 5 centuries. Their understanding of celestial mechanics was so preternaturally advanced that it begs the obvious, yet perpetually ignored question: how? How did a civilization supposedly chipping away at stone with other stones achieve a god's eye view of the cosmos? The answer is found in their most famous and misunderstood creation, the long count calendar. For years the world was gripped by the media fuel frenzy of the 2012 prophecy, the simplistic idea that the end of the calendar's 13th Beacton on December 21, 2012 signified the end of the world. When the sun rose on December 22, the world laughed and dismissed the Maya as failed prophets. This was, perhaps, the greatest misinterpretation in modern history. The Maya never predicted an apocalypse. Their calendar was cyclical, like a cosmic odometer. The end of a great cycle was never an ending, but a turning point, a reset, a moment of profound transition. But what was it resetting for? The theory we present is this: the end of the 13th Beacton was not a prophecy of doom. It was a cosmic alarm clock. It marked the beginning of the final phase, the designated return window for an interstellar mission they had launched millennia before. It was the calculated moment their ancient Voyager, their star-faring ark, would re-enter the outer solar system and begin its final approach. The 13 years between 2012 and 2025 were the final, crucial phase of that approach. Atlas is not early, and it is not late. It is perfectly, breathtakingly on schedule. The evidence for this audacious claim is not hidden in some esoteric texts. It has been in plain sight all along, carved into their most sacred artifacts for anyone with modern eyes to see. Look at the world-famous sarcophagus lid of King Pakal the Great, discovered deep within the Temple of Inscriptions at Palin. Mainstream archaeology tells us it depicts Pakal's descent into the Mayan underworld, falling into the skeletal jaws of a cosmic monster. But set aside that tired, primitive interpretation. Look at it for what it is. You see a man reclining in a seat, his hands manipulating a complex set of controls. His feet are clearly placed on pedals. A breathing apparatus is fitted to his nose. In front of him is a console filled with glyphs and instruments, and behind him stylized flames and exhaust erupt from the back of a streamlined vessel. This is not a journey to the underworld. It is the portrait of an astronaut at the helm of a spacecraft, blasting off into the heavens. This is not an isolated example. Mayan iconography is filled with what modern observers would call technological artifacts. Glyphs depicting figures wearing intricate, pressurized-looking helmets, staring up at the stars. Carvings of serpent gods like Kukulkan descending from the sky not as ethereal spirits, but inside what appear to be physical mechanical vessels. These were not myths. They were a historical record. A logbook, written in stone, of their interactions with and mastery of advanced technology. And what of their pyramids? Why build such massive, astronomically aligned structures? We are told they were tombs for kings and temples for gods, but their function may have been far more practical, far more technological. Sites like Chichen Itza are not just aligned with solstices and equinoxes. Their precise geographic locations, their sacred geometry and the specific materials used in their construction suggest a different, more powerful purpose. They could have been power plants, drawing telluric energy from the Earth's magnetic field. They could have been communication arrays designed to send and receive signals across the vast, silent distances of space. Or, and this is the most likely answer, they were beacons, homing devices, built with immense effort and cosmic precision, to guide their Voyager home after its long journey through the void. The return of 3/Atlas is not a random flyby. It is an inbound vessel responding to a signal sent from Earth thousands of years ago. A signal that says, "We are still here. Come home." The Maya did not collapse. They evolved. They reached a technological singularity, a point where their consciousness and their science allowed them to transcend the physical limitations of this planet. They left behind a skeleton crew, the ancestors of the modern Maya, to act as guardians of the knowledge, and await their return. The object we call 3/Atlas is the first part of that return. It is the serpent star, the vessel of Kukulkan, coming home not to end the world, but to change it forever. An ancient calendar, a carving of a starship, a cosmic beacon built of stone, this evidence alone is compelling. But what if it wasn't the only prophecy? What if thousands of years later and half a world away a different kind of seer, one who saw not with her eyes but with her mind, tapped into the same cosmic timeline and foresaw the same monumental event? An ancient calendar ticking down to a cosmic rendezvous. A stone carving of a king in a starship. Pyramidal structures that function not as tombs, but as interstellar beacons. This evidence, drawn from the heart of the Mayan civilization, is compelling enough on its own to shatter our placid understanding of history. It paints a picture of a past far more advanced and a future far more extraordinary than we have ever been led to believe. But the universe does not rely on a single thread to weave its grandest tapestries. What if this was not the only prophecy? What if the message of this return was so monumental, so crucial to the destiny of our planet, that it was imprinted upon the timeline itself, accessible to those with the sensitivity to perceive it? What if thousands of years after the Maya encoded their plan in mathematics and stone, and half a world away a different kind of seer, one who saw not with her eyes but with the boundless vision of her mind, tapped into that same timeline and witnessed the same world-altering event? Enter Vangelia Gushtarova, a name few would recognize. But the world would come to know her as Baba Vanga, the blind Bulgarian mystic, the Nostradamus of the Balkans. For the hardened skeptic, she is a figure of folklore, a cottage industry of posthumous predictions easily dismissed as hearsay. But for those who have dared to study her life, to meticulously document the testimonies of those who sat with her, a chillingly different portrait emerges. This was not a charlatan dealing in vague pronouncement. This was a simple woman from a mountain village whose inner eye seemed to pierce the veil of time with terrifying precision. Her prophecies, often cryptic and shrouded in metaphor, have a disturbing habit of coming true. Long before the world was plunged into global conflict, she allegedly foresaw the start and tragic course of World War II. Decades before the fateful car crash in a Parisian tunnel, she spoke of the death of Princess Diana. In 1980, years before the fall of the Soviet Union, she made a prophecy that baffled all who heard it. She spoke of the Russian submarine, the Kursk, warning that in August of 1999 or 2000 it would be covered by a huge wave and the whole world will weep over it. At the time, it made no sense. Kursk was a city, far from any ocean. How could a city be covered by a wave? Then in August of 2000, the nuclear submarine named Kursk sank in the Barents Sea, a global tragedy that fulfilled her vision in the most literal and horrific way. Perhaps most famously, in 1989 she delivered a warning that was incomprehensible until the morning of September 11, 2001. "Horror, horror," she cried. "The American brethren will fall after being attacked by the steel birds. The wolves will be howling in a bush, and innocent blood will be gushing." 12 years later the world watched in stunned disbelief as the Twin Towers, the American brethren, fell attacked by the steel birds of hijacked airliners, all while a president named Bush was in office. The unnerving accuracy is undeniable. Vanga's consciousness was somehow untethered from the linear flow of time, allowing her to witness the echoes of future events before they had even occurred. Her visions were a catalogue of earthly tragedy and political upheaval. But it is on the subject of contact with intelligence from beyond our world that her visions shifted from earthly tragedy to cosmic revelation. Here, she was remarkably clear. Baba Vanga issued a prophecy that has been studied, debated, and puzzled over by researchers for decades. She stated, unequivocally, that humanity would make direct contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. But her description was specific, and it is in these specifics that the key to our entire mystery is found. They would not arrive as conquerors, she insisted, not as a hostile force. Her vision was not one of invasion. She said, ships will arrive from the planet Vanfin. They have been watching us for a long time. She described their ships as lentil-shaped and their presence as a form of aid, a helping hand extended to a struggling, adolescent humanity. For years, ufologists and paranormal researchers have fixated on that strange, alien-sounding name, Vanfin. It became a kind of holy grail. They have scoured star charts, searched astronomical databases for exoplanets, and cross-referenced stellar catalogues looking for any candidate, any possible homeworld that could match the name. But they have found nothing. Not a single star system, nebula, or galaxy bears any resemblance to the name Vanga uttered. They have been looking in the wrong place. They were searching for a dot on a map, when they should have been listening for a word in a forgotten language. This is the critical link, the conceptual key that unlocks both the Mayan plan and the Bulgarian prophecy, fusing them into a single, terrifying and magnificent truth. Baba Vanga, with a unique and powerful psychic perception, was not seeing an invasion of unknown beings from a distant alien star. She was seeing a family reunion. Her mind, reaching across time, was tapping into the very same event the Maya had calculated with cold, mathematical precision. The name Vamphim was not a literal, astronomical designation. It was a psychic impression, a vision's imperfect symbolic translation of a concept far more profound, a concept for which our modern languages have no single word. Vamphim was her mind's attempt to process the idea of a home that is not a place, but a memory. A people who are not alien, but ancestral. The etymology is irrelevant. The concept is everything. She was seeing the return of those who are from here, but not of here. She was seeing our progenitors. Now, look again at her vision through this new, illuminating lens. Suddenly, every cryptic detail snaps into sharp, breathtaking focus. The ships from Vamphim are the returning Maya. The great object we have named 3/Atlas is their mothership, their ark, the grand Voyager completing its millennia-long journey across the void. It is the Serpent's Star, and the smaller, lentil-shaped ships she foresaw. Look again at the carving on Pakal's tomb. Look at the vessel he is piloting as he ascends to the stars. It is not a crude rocket. It is a streamlined pod, curved, aerodynamic, and unmistakably lenticular. Baba Vanga was seeing the future deployment of the landers, the shuttle craft that will descend from the main vessel, each one a perfect echo of the very technology the Maya immortalized in stone 3,000 years ago. A prophecy that they have been watching us for a long time is no longer a sinister threat from a distant, unknown species. It is transformed into the tender, patient statement of a parent and ancestor who has been monitoring their descendants from afar, waiting for the proper moment to return, waiting for the end of the great cycle they themselves had set in motion, waiting for their cosmic alarm clock to ring. This is a convergence of prophecy on a scale never before seen in human history. An ancient, scientifically advanced civilization from the jungles of Mesoamerica who plotted the future using the precise language of orbital mechanics and celestial cycles, and a 20th century mystic from the mountains of Bulgaria, whose consciousness transcended time to witness the same future in the symbolic language of visions. They are separated by thousands of years, thousands of miles, and every conceivable cultural, linguistic, and technological difference. One map was written in numbers, the other was written in dreams. And yet, they both point to the exact same destination, a singular monumental event in the exact same window of time, the mid-2020s. The Mayan calendar provided the when. Baba Vanga's vision provided the what. The implications of this are staggering, and they should send a chill down your spine. This is not a random encounter with a bizarre comet. This is not a chance encounter with a passing alien ship. This is a preordained, scheduled event, an appointment recorded in both the mathematics of the heavens and the visions of the earthbound. It has been known. It has been foretold. And if this return has been known for so long by seers and the ancients, if the timeline of this event was accessible to a blind woman in a Bulgarian village, then it is not just a logical assumption but an absolute certainty that modern powers with their vast global intelligence networks, their multi-trillion-dollar black budgets and their classified technologies that are decades ahead of what we see in public know it too. They have seen the same data we have. They have intercepted signals we are not told about. They have access to knowledge we can only dream of. They know what is coming. And their silence is perhaps the most terrifying prophecy of all. When a truth is monumental, the silence that surrounds it is often the most damning evidence. The arrival of 3/Atlas is not just another astronomical curiosity, it is, by any rational measure, the most significant event in all of human history. The confirmation of an intelligently designed, billion-ton object entering our solar system on a controlled trajectory should be the single greatest story of our lifetime. It should be a moment of global celebration, of unified awe and wonder. Our telescopes should be locked onto it, a torrent of data, high-resolution images and scientific papers should be flooding the public domain. Instead, what we have been given by the world's most powerful institutions is a masterclass in obfuscation, misdirection, and outright suppression. If this object were truly just a comet, it would be the celebrity of the scientific world. The silence tells us they know it is something more. Let us return to the timeline, to the critical junction of October 2025. This is not a sequence of unfortunate coincidences, it is a coordinated series of strategic maneuvers designed to control the narrative and conceal the truth during a pivotal moment of observation. On October 1st, the United States government, in a theatrical display of political dysfunction, shuts down over a budget dispute. 2 days later, on October 3rd, 3/Atlas makes its closest approach to Mars. This was not just a minor event, it was the single greatest opportunity for humanity to obtain definitive high-resolution imagery of the object, to finally pierce its convenient cometary veil and see what lay beneath. This timing is not just unfortunate, it is suspiciously, almost laughably, convenient. Consider the assets in play. NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter MRO is equipped with the HiRISE camera, a telescopic instrument of astonishing power capable of spotting an object the size of a dinner table on the Martian surface from orbit. It was perfectly positioned. The commands were sent. The images of 3/Atlas from that unprecedented close-range encounter were taken. We can be certain those multi-gigabyte files containing the most important visual data ever collected by mankind were successfully transmitted across millions of miles of space and received by the antennas of the Deep Space Network on Earth. But where are they? They are hidden. They are locked away in a classified server, shielded from public view under the convenient, bureaucratic excuse of a government shutdown. We are shown a single blurry low-resolution image from the European Space Agency, just enough to acknowledge the event occurred, while the highest resolution data humanity possesses remains classified at a level higher than nuclear secrets. This is not science. This is censorship. And the silence is not just American. It is global. It is absolute. China's Tianwen-1 orbiter, also circling Mars, had an ideal vantage point. The China National Space Administration, CNSA, an agency that typically celebrates every minor mission milestone with patriotic fanfare and a flood of media releases, has said absolutely nothing. Russia, a key partner in the EXOMOS mission, has released no independent data, no radar telemetry, no spectral analysis. The coordination is seamless. This is not a case of multiple, independent space agencies being incompetent or unlucky. This is the signature of a deliberate worldwide information blackout, a pre-planned conspiracy of silence among global powers who have agreed that the public must not see what they saw. But this conspiracy goes deeper than just hiding telescope images. It reaches back centuries into the fortified vaults of history and into the heart of the most secretive and powerful non-governmental organization on Earth, the Vatican. When the Spanish conquistadors under the banner of the cross swept through the Americas, their mission was not just the acquisition of gold, it was the eradication of knowledge. Led by figures like Bishop Diego de Landa, they burned thousands of Mayan texts to replaceable codices that contained the full breadth of Mayan history, science, prophecy, and their understanding of the cosmos. It was one of the greatest acts of cultural vandalism in history. But not all were destroyed. It is inconceivable that every single document was turned to ash. The most important codices, the ones containing knowledge deemed too powerful, too dangerous, or too contradictory to the established dogma of the Church, were seized. They were carefully packaged and transported across the Atlantic, destined for the one place on Earth designed to keep secrets forever, the Vatican's secret archives. We theorize that these hidden codices contain the full, unvarnished truth of the Mayan exodus and their cosmic plan. They are not just astronomical tables, they are technical manuals. They are the blueprints for the Voyager craft we call 3/Atlas. They are the star charts detailing its long journey through the interstellar dark. And most importantly, they contain the true purpose of its mission, and the sacred protocol for its return. The Vatican Observatory, one of the oldest astronomical research institutions in the world, is not merely a scientific body. It is the modern custodian of this ancient secret. Its astronomers are not just watching 3/Atlas with scientific curiosity, they are cross-referencing its approach, its velocity, and its behavior with the ancient texts they have hidden from the world for 500 years. They are preparing not for a scientific discovery but for a theological crisis of unprecedented scale, an event that will challenge the very foundations of their faith and their claim to spiritual authority over humanity. This leads us to the final, and darkest, layer of the conspiracy, the agenda of the modern deep state. The shadow governments and intertwined intelligence agencies of the world are not just hiding the truth, they are preparing to weaponize it. They understand, with perfect clarity, that the return of the Maya represents the greatest power shift in human history. The knowledge and technology they bring could solve humanity's most intractable problems: energy, disease, poverty, scarcity, virtually overnight. But that same technology would also render the current systems of control based on fossil fuels, centralized finance, and military might completely and utterly obsolete. The powerful of today would become irrelevant tomorrow. They cannot and will not allow that to happen. So they are preparing a narrative. They will control how we, the global population, perceive this event. Two primary scenarios are likely. In the first, they will attempt to co-opt the technology for themselves, establishing contact in secret, murdering the visitors if necessary, and creating an insurmountable technological gap over the rest of the world's population, cementing their power for 1,000 years. In the second, and far more sinister scenario, they will enact the ultimate false flag operation. They will frame the returning Maya not as ancestors, but as hostile invaders. They will use their absolute control of the global media to stoke fear, paranoia, and panic. They will create a global threat that requires a global response, the final long-awaited justification for a one-world government, a final consolidation of power under the benevolent guise of protecting humanity from an enemy they invented. The government shutdown, the hidden images, the coordinated global silence. It is all part of the preparation. They are buying time. Time to finalize their plans. Time to position their military assets. And time to ensure that when the truth is finally revealed, it is on their terms, not ours. They know what Vanga saw. They know what the hidden Mayan codices say. They know that a visitor is coming. And they are preparing for war, while telling us to look at a pretty comet. The stage is set. The prophecies have converged. The global powers hold their breath, their fingers poised over the levers of control and misinformation. For over a month, during its most critical phase of approach, 3/Atlas has been hidden from our view, its passage shielded by the blinding glare of the sun. But this period of darkness, this engineered blackout of our collective sight, is ending. In December 2025 it will re-emerge from its solar conjunction, gliding silently back into the view of our telescopes both on Earth and in space. This is the moment. The window foretold by the Maya, seen by Vanga, and feared by those who rule in the shadows. This is not just another astronomical event. This is a fork in the human timeline. A singular moment where the future of our species' consciousness will cleave into two distinct and mutually exclusive paths. The choice of which path we take will not be decided by governments or armies. It will be determined by our collective reaction to what we are about to witness. What will we see in December? What is the final, undeniable truth that the powers that be have tried so desperately to conceal? First, the disguise will fall away. As 3/Atlas moves farther from the sun, the internal heating mechanism causing the convenient outgassing, the very phenomenon that has allowed it to be mislabeled as a comet, will subside. The purple, nickel-laced shroud will dissipate into the vacuum. High-resolution imagery, whether it is leaked by brave whistleblowers or officially released as part of a controlled narrative, will finally reveal its true form. We will not see a jagged, tumbling rock of ice and dust. We will see a vast artificial structure, ancient and weathered from its long journey, its hull bearing the marks of millennia spent in the interstellar void. We will see geometry, symmetry, and evidence of technology. The debate will end. The truth will be undeniable. We will be looking at a starship. Second, the prophecy of the lentil-shaped ships will be fulfilled. We may witness the deployment of smaller probes, the scout ships or landers that Vanga foresaw, with such clarity. They will not be weapons, but messengers. They will likely move with a technology that defies our understanding of physics, silent, instantaneous, gravitational, and impossibly precise. Their destinations will not be random. They will be calculated, perhaps moving to hover over the great pyramids of the world, Giza, and most certainly, the Mayan sites of the Yucatan. They may be coming to reactivate a global energetic grid that has lain dormant for thousands of years, linking the ancient sacred sites in a network of power and information. And third, it will attempt to communicate. But do not expect a radio signal. That is our primitive language, the clumsy shouting of electromagnetic waves into the void. The Maya, a civilization that had mastered consciousness itself, a culture that understood the fabric of reality, will likely use a more fundamental, more universal medium. The communication may be a telepathic broadcast, a coherent wave of information, emotion, and pure knowledge that washes over the planet, bypassing our technology and speaking directly to our minds. It may not even use language, but pure concept. It may be a symbolic message, a grand celestial sign formed in the heavens, visible to every man, woman, and child on earth, a final beautiful confirmation that the age of waiting is over and the age of separation is at an end. This is the moment of choice. One path is the path of fear. This is the narrative the deep state has prepared for us. It is the story they are ready to broadcast on every screen on the planet. They will label the returning vessel as a threat. They will call the probes an invasion force. They will interpret the telepathic communication as a psychic attack, a hostile attempt to control our minds. Media channels controlled by their corporate and intelligence masters will broadcast images of panic, military mobilization, and manufactured conflict, and a terrified humanity conditioned for generations to fear the unknown other will beg for protection, willingly sacrificing its freedom for the illusion of security provided by a newly formed global government. This path leads to a dark forest, a future of planetary conflict, technological enslavement, and a perpetual war against a manufactured enemy to maintain eternal control. But there is another path, the path of welcome. This path requires a profound act of courage. It requires us to see not with our conditioned fears, but with our deepest ancestral memory, to recognize the serpent's star not as a threat, but as a promise fulfilled. In this timeline, humanity collectively rejects the narrative of fear. We turn off our screens and look at the sky with our own eyes. We feel the truth in our own hearts. We see the returning Maya not as aliens, but as family, as the great wise ancestors who left us the keys to our own evolution encoded in our DNA and in the sacred geometry of our planet, and have now returned to help us unlock our own divinity. This path leads to a planetary awakening, a new golden age, where the secrets of consciousness, zero-point energy, and our true cosmic history are returned to us. It is a future not of scarcity and control, but of unity, healing, and infinite potential. The choice between these two futures is not up to them. It is up to us. We stand at the precipice of the greatest revelation in history. We have followed the evidence from the cold, hard data of astronomy to the sacred carvings of the Mayan jungle, and to the uncanny time-bending visions of a blind seer. We have seen how the scientific anomalies of 3/Atlas, its impossible mass, its manufactured chemistry, its calculated trajectory are not the hallmarks of a random comet but the unmistakable fingerprints of intelligent design. We have proposed that this object is the culmination of a plan set in motion thousands of years ago by a spacefaring Mayan civilization, a plan whose final dramatic act was foreseen by Vanga. And we have exposed the global conspiracy of silence, a desperate last-ditch attempt by the existing powers of this world to control a truth they know will change everything forever. Now, all that is left is to watch the sky, and to choose. The world's institutions have failed to prepare us for this moment. They have chosen secrecy over transparency, control over trust, and fear over wonder. The scientific establishment has chosen to protect its rigid paradigms rather than confront inconvenient truths. Governments have chosen to protect their power structures rather than empower their people. The media has chosen to be a mouthpiece for the powerful rather than a vessel for the truth. Therefore, the responsibility falls to each of us, to question what we are told, to look at the evidence with open eyes and an open heart, and to decide, for ourselves, what we believe. The coming months will test us in ways we cannot yet imagine. The narrative of fear will be powerful, relentless, and broadcast on every screen. It will be professionally produced and psychologically manipulative. But the truth, encoded in our very DNA and whispered in our oldest myths, is more powerful still. The object we call 3/Atlas is a mirror, held up to the face of humanity. And in it, we will see a reflection not of an alien other, but of our own deepest, most magnificent potential. The final question is not what it will do when it arrives. The question is what we will do. When the serpent star, the star of our ancestors, finally returns to our skies, will we greet it as children welcoming their long-lost parents, ready to learn, to evolve, and to finally grow up as a species? Or will we remain as frightened primitives, pointing our weapons at the sky, forever trapped in a cycle of fear and violence of our own making? The future of humanity does not depend on a visitor from the stars. It hangs in the balance of our own choice.